Los Angeles, AP, vandals looted shops and a restaurant burned Sunday afternoon in Santa Monica as armed National Guard soldiers patrolled Los Angeles streets and cities across California declared curfews to prevent violence after unruly demonstrators torched police cars, broke into stores and clashed with officers in riot gear. Nearly 400 people were arrested in Los Angeles on Saturday as protests have become increasingly violent over several nights because of outrage over the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd, Police Chief Michel Moore said. He said he hoped the National Guard and additional officers deployed would curb that trend. Across the state, devastated shop owners cleaned up shattered glass, assessed damage and boarded up windows while firefighters mopped up hot spots from lingering fires. In Emeryville, across the bay from San Francisco, where thieves stormed shopping malls around sunset Saturday, snatched flat-screen TVs, shoes and other goods, Keila Calderon swept up glass outside Uniform Advantage, a shop that sells medical scrubs. Calderon's store had just reopened last week after being shuttered for 6 weeks under California's stay-at-home order to stem the spread of the coronavirus. She said she had just returned home Saturday when she got a call from a security company that the store's burglar alarm was triggered. She turned on the news to see live helicopter shots of people breaking into her shop and others at an outdoor mall. They smashed glass doors, stole clothes and computers and destroyed the cash register. To hear the alarm ring and see people destroy the store before my eyes, it was heartbreaking, Calderon said. We're all working hard to feed our family. We have nothing to do with these injustices, yet we're paying the consequences. Governor Gavin Newsom deployed 1,000 members of the Guard to assist the 20,000 officers of the Los Angeles Police and Sheriff's Departments, Mayor Eric Garcetti said. The San Francisco police chief said about 200 outside officers were en route. Los Angeles County declared a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew for its 10 million residents, though the cities of Santa Monica and Beverly Hills, which experienced looting on Saturday, imposed 4 p.m. curfews. San Francisco set a curfew of 8 p.m., and San Jose had an 8:30 p.m. curfew. Protests continued Sunday throughout the state. While most were peaceful, there were flare-ups near where some of the protests took place. Unrest in coastal Santa Monica happened not far from a peaceful demonstration near the city's famous pier as a group of looters targeted shops near the popular 3rd Street Promenade. They broke into a Gap store and a Vans sneaker store, where KTTV footage showed people walking out with boxes of shoes with no police in sight. A woman in a tank top holding a sign saying "End all violence" tried to block a man with a hammer from smashing the door of REI, the outdoor supply store. The man yanked her from the door. But she returned to the doorway and another protester joined her and the vandals eventually moved on. Looters later shattered the store's windows and walked away with folding chairs, a bike and backpacks. A fire broke out at a restaurant across the street. About 1,000 people marched through the streets of San Francisco, carrying signs and chanting, "George Floyd, Black Lives Matter." "We're here because George Floyd was murdered in cold blood," Aliasaya Allah said. "We are sick of the countless injustices on black and brown lives, mostly black lives." Hundreds of people, many with facial masks to protect against the coronavirus, marched through downtown San Diego with signs that included, "I can't breathe," a reference to Floyd's dying words. The protest took an ominous turn after several hours when San Diego police said they fired tear gas to disperse a crowd pelting them with rocks and bottles. In Los Angeles, damage from Saturday's violence included windows shattered at nearly every shop along a stretch of Melrose Avenue, home to trendy boutiques and known widely for its association with the TV show, Melrose Place. Alan Kokosian looked up through a hole in the roof of Tony K's shoe store, where fire Saturday had burned and most of his inventory was stolen or damaged. He pleaded unsuccessfully for people to spare his establishment and was struck in the head with a bottle. "This was not a political protest," Kokosian said. "This was basically a bunch of thieves getting together taking advantage of a situation." Officials acknowledged the anger of protesters over the death of George Floyd, a handcuffed black man who died after a white Minneapolis police officer pressed his knee to Floyd's neck, and affirmed their right to demonstrate. But they condemned the wave of crime by a small number that had overshadowed the message of thousands who had gathered and marched. The us peacefully speaking out sometimes doesn't have as loud a voice as the images that make the news, Garcetti said. It breaks my heart, too, to think about the Angelenos protesting in peace and fighting for justice, how this violence and looting clouds that picture. Yet it was hard to ignore images of police cars engulfed in flames in the middle of the day in Los Angeles, people running out the broken door of an Alexander McQueen luxury clothing store on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills with handfuls of clothes, or demonstrators tossing fireworks at officers in Santa Ana, in Orange County. There was also video of officers in skirmish lines in LA, some swinging clubs at protesters, others firing projectiles at people with their hands up, and crowds running from a cloud of tear gas in Beverly Hills. Garcetti praised the 99.99% of officers he said had shown restraint. Moore, who was on the front lines Saturday and handed his business card to demonstrators, said officers had acted appropriately, though he acknowledged some individual failures, and said any abuse complaints would be investigated. 5 LAPD officers were injured in the clashes and 2 hospitalized, including one who required surgery after his skull was fractured by a brick, Moore said. San Francisco's popular Union Square saw people stealing leather bags from the Coach store and shoes from the Salvatore Ferragamo location, the Mercury News reported. Streets were littered with bras from Victoria's Secret and cushioned jewelry boxes from Swarovski. Police fired tear gas to disperse protesters. Mayor London Breed said the city's 8 p.m. curfew would be extended indefinitely, and people could be stopped for being outside. Breed expressed sadness about the destruction and said she was not going to tolerate the violence. She said the fire department was inundated with calls because of fires and medical emergencies and had firebombs thrown at them. I was extremely upset because unfortunately with some of the vandals, they thought this was a game, they thought this was funny. And this is not funny, Breed said, adding that she saw many juveniles among the vandals. So parents, where are your kids? Where are your kids? Protests also roiled the East San Diego suburb of La Mesa, where 2 adjacent banks burned to the ground and people smashed windows at many businesses. I think people are hurting and they're angry and they're trying to be heard because there's no other way to get anyone's attention, Ali Kayahua said of the property damage in La Mesa. It's unfortunate. But this has been part of our history and how things get done because they don't listen any other way. From Yahoo!